All right, so I wanna show some things here about how the Arab world is reacting to this. So the Jewish world is singing this song. I just hummed to you and read you some of the lines of this song from 18 years ago. But this. I was surprised that the Arab world they're handing out pieces of baklava, which is what they do when they're celebrating. And why is that? Because this is a person who killed tens or hundreds of thousands of them. He slaughtered them in mass, innocent civilians, women, and children. And they're celebrating, especially in Syria. And so there are these videos going around of them handing out baklava, celebrating. And they've actually written songs about Netanyahu. Now, just remember, we're at war with Hamas in Gaza, and they've spread this lie that Israel's committing genocide against Hamas, which is actually the opposite. They're using their own civilians as human shields, so they're responsible for any civilian deaths. You know, if you shoot at me hiding behind a child, and I shoot back to save myself because I'm going to die otherwise, you're responsible if that child dies. So they've called, Netanyahu. They've said he committed genocide and he's a mass murderer, and now they're singing songs praising him, thanking him for killing uh,
This bad guy.
this evil person, Hassan Nasrallah. And um, actually, first I want to show you here. Here's a picture of children in Syria. So here are the children in Syria, and they're holding up signs, and it says here "Shukran," which is thank you, Netanyahu. Thank you, Netanyahu. And they're thanking, and it says, "You have made the children of Syria rejoice." And there's the baklava that they're handing out because and you can see there's the flag of Syria in the background. So why are the children of Syria saying, "Thank you, Netanyahu, you have made the children of Syria rejoice"? Because Hassan Nasrallah slaughtered them in their thousands. Now, do you remember there were all these protests around the world when against Nasrallah, calling, complaining about the genocide in front of do you remember that? For Nasrallah? No, there were none. Nobody cared. Meaning nobody outside the Arab world cared. Within the Arab world, frankly, they didn't care anyway because he was killing Syrian children, right? But when a Palestinian child in Gaza stubs his toe, then there's international outrage. Um, and frankly, now it's a lot more than that because they're using them as human shields. But you should be outraged against Hamas for using them as human shields. But nobody cared when he killed. The estimated number is that 400,000 Syrians were killed in the civil war,
Wow.
mostly civilians. Can you imagine that
Wow.
number, 400,000? And there wasn't a single protest that I'm aware of at Columbia University, at Cornell University. Nobody cared because it was Sunnis killing Shiites. And frankly, these people don't know the difference between Sunnis and Shiites, most of them. And let's be honest, a lot of the protests going on right now in the United States are paid for by Iran and organizations like Soros's, whatever it's called, his terrorist organization. So nobody's paying them to protest. So there are no protests against Syria and against Hezbollah. So now I'm going to play you with some songs. And it's a clip from the Israeli Channel 14, which has a montage of three different songs that just came out in the last few days praising Netanyahu. And then I'll read you the translation, which is unbelievable. They're singing the praises of Netanyahu, who they were previously accusing of genocide.
I find
Um,
that so uh, just
yeah.
shocking. But when
And
I
this
first saw
actually,
that, I was like, that can't
yeah.
be real.
So this comes from a TikTok channel, Edition 062, which I searched on TikTok and couldn't find. So maybe it's been banned. I don't know since this came out. But here are and look, there's these pictures of Netanyahu, and you'll particularly see Netanyahu in a kippah, which is interesting because Netanyahu doesn't wear a kippah unless he's visiting a synagogue, right? He puts on a kippah like Joe Biden puts on a kippah when he visits a synagogue, which is so interesting. But they're trying to portray him as like the stereotypical Jew, maybe in a sense, right? And by the way, this is Israeli Channel 14. It says Shidur Chai, live broadcast, and in the upper left it says Tov lehodot laHashem. it is good to give thanks to Yehovah, to Hashem, to the name,
I love
right?
that.
Isn't it, with the Israeli flag, because they're celebrating the death of this arch terrorist Hassan Nasrallah. So here are these Arab songs praising Netanyahu.
سيدي القائد بين الخدم قاعد أهلا وسهلا شرفت يا حضرة الوالد ريحة البارود يا حلو طمت لك سود الله ولبست العقال الله وشيالت الفرود أهلا كرم.
Now aesthetically you can say it's not pleasing, which is I suppose the subjective thing, right? It's not my style of music, I'll be honest. But the words there are really interesting. So the first song says, read the announcement and look at it. Sharpen swords. There are crazy men among us who are celebrating like eagles. Okay, I don't fully understand that, but sure. Song number 2 is the most interesting to me. Commander, sir, they call him, it translates in Hebrew at least, Adonia Mefaked. Commander, sir, sitting among your servants, greetings. It is our honorable father. That's the one where they show Netanyahu wearing the kippah, and they call Netanyahu honorable father. That's how much they hated Hassan Nasrallah for killing so many Arabs. This is an Arab song, right? Unbelievable. Song number 3, the smell of gunpowder, the lions have come, welcome. And lions, of course, is from the Lion of Judah, right? They're aware of that metaphor. And then they say, again, this is an Arab song. Allah puts a crown on your head, talking about Netanyahu. Allah gives you guns, right? So they're saying this actually in religious terms, that their God is using Netanyahu and Israel to defeat their enemies, and they're right. I mean, who would have expected this? If you would have told anybody on October 6th that in less than a year, Hassan Nasrallah will be killed by Israel, and the Arabs will be praising Netanyahu. You couldn't sell this as a Hollywood movie. It would be considered unrealistic. But there it's happening. I mean, this is God performing miracles. Of course, they see it in their terms, right? So I want to show one last video, and then we're going to get into some Bible study.
I just want to say another thing that came out of this that I saw was the Grim Beeper. They were calling the beeper the Grim Beeper.
I didn't see that one. I love that. Right, because so what Israel did, and Israel worked on developing this project for 15 years. They established actual corporations in Europe. I mean, look, this is conspiracy theory stuff. Right. Israel is making the beepers, right? The CIA makes telephones, and they're listening to your phones directly, right? But it actually is true. Israel, it took them 15 years. They developed actual corporations that made beepers and walkie-talkies. And there are jokes going around where the Hezbollah terrorists are calling up the helpline. They're on the phone calling up the helpline at the beeper company. And the guy says, I will transfer you to tech support. And and then they're selling the beepers. And the Israeli, who, like, this is satire, right? The Israeli is on the phone negotiating the price, and of course he wants to get a good price because he's Jewish. And they're like, okay, we'll only pay you 10 euros. And he's like, no, I must get 20 euros for every beeper. And the guy in the background says, just give him the price. We want to buy the beepers. No, we got to get a good deal.
Oh my gosh.
Because they actually bought the beepers from Israel, right? This was an operation. I mean, yeah, it was an intelligence operation. 15 years it took them to do this.
They played the long game.
That is the long game. Now they say the entire Arab world and Muslim world are throwing away their cell phones and beepers and sourcing everything from China. The funny thing is these beepers were made in Taiwan, except Taiwan outsourced them to a company based in Hungary. And they were probably made in Israel.
Wow.
So who knows where they were made, right? I don't really know. Of course, Israel hasn't taken responsibility for the beeper operation, but we all know it was Israel.